Primary problem solving. What type of issues do you see in your job? What are the challenges that cause you frustration or delays or make it difficult for you to do your best work? Why is it that some of these problems never seem to go away, even though it seems like someone's always working on solutions? We have seen organizations of all types struggle with problems at the source. The challenge is that functions are not usually set up to provide employees with the skill and the time it takes to solve problems. And management many times does not have an infrastructure in place to support the problem solving or to properly address escalations. We have created a simple but powerful guide to help tackle this issue. We call it primary problem solving. The focus is, in this order, number 1, let's prevent issues where possible. Number 2, when we can't prevent issues, let's have a mechanism in place to detect the issues early. Number 3, when issues are detected, let's be ready with a quick and effective response plan. So, prevention, detection, and response.
Employees and people working inside the process most likely did not create the process. We inherited it. But it's ours now, and it's better to recognize when and how to improve on a daily basis. This is the main role of the Yellow Belt, event-based problem solving, asking why and fixing things for good. No band-aids or actions that make things worse longer term.
So why should we focus on primary problem solving? If employees don't have support or skills to solve problems, they will assume that they have to live with them. They'll either ignore issues or create their own workarounds to cope with them. The skills that we're about to cover will increase employees' ability to detect problems, to understand the impact of their current ways of working. With an understanding of what's going wrong, employees develop skills to focus on prevention and create high-impact solutions. With support from leadership, there's a clear process to escalate larger issues, and these together are the first step in creating a culture of continuous improvement.
On page 9 of your workbook, take a few moments to complete the self-assessment. Looking at the 6 characteristics on this page, rate your own current scenario within your organization. In order to increase your learning, pause the video to give yourself time for a thoughtful assessment. Do that now. Imagine you were the lucky recipient of a parking ticket for parking near the sign. Is the root cause of the problem that you don't care for the law, again? That you're a careless driver? What do we do in our processes that make it too easy to make a mistake? Mistakes can often be traced to some well-defined causes, if we take the time to look. Taking the time to understand why an event occurred is the key to developing effective solutions. Imagine a situation where a worker is instructed to use Form A, instead the worker uses Form B.
On page 10 of your workbook, consider this simple example and answer the first questions on the top of the page. Given the scenario of the worker who used the wrong form, what would your recommendation be as the leader or manager in charge? Pause the video to answer this question. The typical investigator would probably conclude that worker error was the cause. Although this is an accurate description of what happened and how it happened, if the analysis stops there, the reasons for the mistake will not be understood, and the problem cannot be prevented in the future. We are likely to see recommendations such as retraining on procedures, remind all employees to be alert, remind employees to pay careful attention, write up or punish the worker.
So if we were to take the time to think about this, what other questions might we ask? In the case of the wrong form used, we might ask, was the procedure confusing? Were the instructions open to interpretations? Were the forms clearly titled? Or were the forms filed in a logical, easy-to-find location? Considering the additional possible explanations, what type of recommendations might be expected? Our list of recommendations would likely focus on a deeper cause and therefore create a stronger solution. For example, we might come up with solutions like revise procedures to ensure understanding of purpose and proper usage of forms, clearly title and label forms, perhaps even color code them, provide a clear and logical path to locate files.
A very important premise of problem solving is that we focus on the process or the system and not on the individual. We aim to be acutely focused on preventing problems from occurring. How do we create a process that makes it difficult to make a mistake? A process that sets people up for success and productivity. Problem solving is not about blame or punishment. Renowned management consultant Dr. William Edwards Deming was one of the founders of Lean Six Sigma Evolution, and he created many of the foundational concepts that we still use today. One of his studies resulted in what he called the 94-6 rule. That is, of all root causes of problems, only 6% of those causes can be traced to the person. Yet, we are very used to concluding that errors are caused by the people in the process. It's human nature to think that we know why something happened without investigating. The basic premise is that no one comes to work intending to make a mistake, but our systems, our processes are not well designed to prevent errors from occurring.
Some of the most common mistakes are not understanding the problem and either ignoring it or coming up with a solution that makes things worse. Not asking the people involved in the process for details on how the process works and doesn't work. Many problems have multiple causes, not just one. And these causes can work together to create a perfect storm. For us to understand how to fix a problem, we first need to understand whether there are multiple root causes of the specific problem we are solving. Another common mistake is to pull apart those processes without a plan for how to put it together in a better way. Pulling it apart before analyzing and understanding what is currently not working. The opposite mistakes is to runaway analysis. This happens when we are not clear on our scope and are trying to solve too many issues at the same time. Try and solve one at a time. Jumping to conclusions happens when we make quick assumptions about the cause and solutions. This never happens, I hear you say. These solutions rarely work, and because there's insufficient time or effort put into the understanding of the problem and cause, we typically don't pay attention to whether the quick solution had a positive impact. Did it even work? Most often these fast solutions are not well thought out and end up creating more problems and variations in the end. Not understanding the process. Most of our processes are complex with multiple steps, people, systems, and challenges. A main task of problem solving is to understand the problem and the process so that we can create a solution that at least has a chance of working.
PDCA, sometimes called the Deming Wheel or the Deming Cycle, was developed by Dr. Deming in the 1950s.
Wow, Claire, that's so long ago. Is that even still relevant these days?
Thank you, Ryan, for that question. It is relevant, and here's why. It's been around for a long time, but as you know from our experiences, not a lot of people do it well. So done poorly, it can be just something that creates more problems. It's a really effective tool. It's simple, but if we do it well. Deming wanted to create a way of identifying what caused products to fail to meet customer expectations. This solution helps businesses to develop hypotheses about what needs to change and then test these in a continuous feedback loop.
Sometimes the cycle can use the word study instead of check, making it PDCA. The difference there is that there is an emphasis on studying the results versus just checking on them, which we often do. Either way, the cycle involves systematically planning and testing solutions, assessing the results, and only implementing those that we know have good results.
PDCA is not the best approach for all situations. For the simplest problems, we can solve them with a simple what, when, where, and come up with a quick fix. For those moderate problems, we can apply the PDCA cycle to ensure that we've understood the problems and have tested solutions before changing our process. For the more complex issues that require deeper analysis and time, we'll use the DMAIC process, which is a Greenbelt project.
Along with this training, you will have access to our Yellow Belt templates for download. Woohoo! So for this next section, you will follow along in your workbook, which will cover the templates, and after the course, you will have your own templates to use for your own problem solving. These templates include simple forms that will provide both a guide and a record of your problem solving history. The templates that you have received are structured to either use in Excel with drop-downs and links, or you can print them and use them as write-in forms. Either way, it's a good method. Now, your specific work situation will determine how great of an impact you can have using these methods and tools. If you have the support of the entire organization, you can have a great impact. Functions are actively solving problems and skillfully improving processes, and leadership across the organization is receiving escalations for those issues that need a larger effort or project, for these issues that cannot be resolved well with PDCA.
But not everybody has the support of the entire organization, but you'll still see improvements. If there are pockets or just a couple different functions that are used in the tools, you'll notice them because they have greater handoffs, fewer gaps, and much more efficient and effective communications between those departments or functions. This means fewer meetings and issues with much greater results.
Maybe you have the support of your direct leadership, but the methods are not used beyond your department. Then you will see the benefits in your department. You will be able to better communicate with the other functions as you gain greater structure and skills in your area, which is also a benefit. If you and your immediate work group are using the methods and tools, they can become part of your standard work. You will have visibility and record of all the problems and solutions and outcomes for the team and even across departments. Your work group will have the ability to improve the process within your scope, but will have more difficulty achieving improvements cross-functionally.
And lastly, if you're an individual contributor without the support of your work group or leadership, then you'll still use this method to organize and improve your own actions and contributions. When you participate in meetings and discussions, you'll have your thoughts and actions organized and well prepared. If you stick to it, you'll end up influencing others. Good methods done well tend to catch on and expand within organizations. So regardless of your specific scenario and level of participation or support from others, you will find great value in applying the methods to your work. Take a few moments to review your notes and get ready for a quick quiz on this chapter, Introduction to Primary Problem Solving.
Good luck.
The first step of PDCA is plan. The milestones in this step are the foundational activities that must be done before jumping into solutions. Defining the problem and the goal, assessing the risk or impact of the problem, solidifying the team who will participate in the problem solving, and then determining the baseline of the problem. The baseline is how we will measure the current scenario to put some numbers around the magnitude of the problem. The tools introduced in this yellow belt course are the basic level, appropriate for yellow belts. In green belt and black belt training, we will cover more complex versions of these tools to accommodate the more challenging scenarios.
The problem statement is a concise way to describe the issue that we are working to solve. Typically, if we ask someone to describe a problem, we will get all kinds of information that cloud the actual issue. We might hear assumptions of why it's happening, the history of the problem, descriptions of what we should be doing, and all kinds of details that are irrelevant at this time. At this point, at the very beginning of problem solving, it is important to crystallize the description of the problem. A good rule of thumb is to try state the problem in 3 to 5 words. For example, customers callback, reports are late, system downtime high. It's important that we do not include elements like blame or cause or solution. The problem statement is just that, a clear statement of the problem. This is not as easy as it sounds. We've reviewed thousands of problem statements all around the world and almost always find something in there that doesn't belong. So don't be surprised if it takes you a few tries to get it right.
Once we have a clearly stated problem statement, we are set up to create a goal statement. The goal identifies the critical outcome of the improvement. It describes targets or results and quantifiable benefits. The goal includes time frame for implementation and/or results and should not include a solution or a design. This is a clear description of the end result that we're aiming for. A good acronym to remember when writing goals is SMART. SMART is an acronym for characteristics of a good goal statement, and it includes specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Specific and measurable ensure that we have stated the goal in a way that allows us to confirm the results. If our goal is making the customer happier, we haven't created a specific or a measurable goal. However, if we say reduce customer on-hold time by 50%, we have a specific and measurable goal. Achievable means that we are looking for goals that are doable and manageable, not an overly ambitious and aspirational goal. Relevant means that the goal has to be worthy of our time. Is it relevant to the strategic goals and direction? If not, then let's find something more meaningful to work on. And the last element is time-bound. This indicates that we want our goal to have an end date. Primary problem solving is about rapid cycles of improvement on a regular basis and not about ongoing indefinite aims or goals.
As a part of understanding the problem, we should understand the risk that the problem is presenting. A simple way to understand risk is to assess the frequency of the problem. How often does this problem occur? And the severity. How bad is the consequences when the problem does happen? These two factors will help us to prioritize issues to work on the greatest risk problems first. We might prioritize problems that are small, but they happen a lot. These are common, little annoyances that are worth fixing. Or we may be tackling a problem that is rare but severe. Either way, we need to understand what we are dealing with before investing our time and resources.
Creating a baseline of the problem is a key foundational step that will allow us to determine.
So in our PDCA template, we have a place to capture the problem and goal statement as well as the date that the problem started or was first noticed. The description of the impact allows the team to identify why it is important to solve this issue. The impact captures the multiple or downstream effects of the problem. In our example here, the problem is that the lab test times are too long. The impact describes that this causes delays in order delivery and employees are unproductive while they are waiting for the lab test to be completed. With a description of the impact completed, the team can perform the simple problem risk assessment. The risk assessment rates the problem on two factors. The frequency of the problem, that is, how often does it occur? And the second factor is the severity. How severe is the impact when the problem does occur? Here, using the description of the impact above, the team has identified the problem as a moderate risk. It occurs frequently with a moderate severity.
In the next section of the plan form, we capture the team involved in solving this problem. The bottom portion is a very important piece as it identifies how the team will measure the baseline of the problem. This is the baseline. If the problem is that lab tests take long, how long? If the problem was the number of defects, we would show the number or proportion of defects. Establishing a before measure allows us to do two things. Number one, we confirm that the problem actually exists. And number two, we set ourselves up so that we can compare the process after we've implemented changes. This is how we will confirm whether our improvement had the desired impact and reached our goal. The before picture can be a process map showing unnecessary steps, with the after illustrating a more streamlined process. Or we could use a simple picture showing disorganization. Or we could use a chart or a graph to show the before problem and the after improvement. It doesn't have to be pretty, but it does need to be accurate. Take a few moments to review your notes and get ready for a quick quiz on this chapter, the plan phase of PDCA. The do part of PDCA is where the analysis occurs. What are we doing in this phase is identifying potential causes, validating the root causes, and making sure that we're not just addressing the symptoms, and then developing solutions to minimize or eliminate those root causes. The tools that we will cover in this section are the fishbone diagram, multi-voting, and the 5 whys.
The fishbone diagram is a great tool to use for a structured brainstorming. It's a way to organize ideas around categories, and it allows us to drill down on certain topics to get to greater detail. The fishbone diagram is also known as a cause and effect diagram, or the Ishikawa diagram, named after its creator. A fishbone diagram is best used with a group of people and done on a whiteboard or central focus for the room.
Let's look at the anatomy of the fishbone diagram to understand how it's organized. The problem or the result that we are trying to understand is placed in the box on the far right, the head of the fish. The horizontal line is the spine of the fish, and off of that spine are the major categories of potential causes. The purpose of this tool is to brainstorm potential causes, and this structure is organizing our ideas into categories and then subcategories. You'll see in this diagram the general categories that can be used. However, these categories can be changed depending on the type of process that you are analyzing. Each idea under a specific category becomes another bone in the fish. Let's look at the top right under the category Environment. The team has identified clocks as a potential cause, and drilling down into that cause are more details about clocks. Clocks are inaccurate, clocks are not in sync are 2 sub-causes. Another way of using this tool is to have the team brainstorm all of their ideas for causes of the problem first. And then, when all the ideas have been gathered, the team can group similar ideas together and see what categories emerge. It's a very flexible tool, and like most tools, we have to make the tool work for us, not the other way around. The point of this tool is to help us understand not only what the problem is, but also why the problem happens. It's only when we can determine why an event or a failure occurred that we can create a workable corrective measures or solution that prevent future occurrences. Another tool that works beautifully with the fishbone diagram is the 5 whys.
On page 17 of your workbook, the 5 whys can be used individually or as a part of the fishbone diagram. Once we have a good list of causes on our fishbone, we can use the 5 whys technique to drill down to the root causes. We'll share an actual example of the 5 whys used in the US capital, Washington, D.C. There was a problem with the Jefferson Memorial. That problem was the integrity of the structure. It was in overall poor condition, looking dull and scratched up. The maintenance crew of the Jefferson Memorial had literally spent years working on the problems associated with the exterior maintenance of the memorial. They tried many different cleaning solutions, methods, vendors, and procedures. But then one of them heard about the 5 whys and decided to give it a try. So let's see how it worked for them. The premise is that you ask why approximately 5 times. You'll get somewhere near the real root cause of the problem. So the first why.
Why is the exterior dull and scratched? Because we use highly corrosive and harsh chemicals and cleaning equipment. Well, the second why do we use harsh chemicals and tools? Because there's an abundance of pigeons at the Jefferson Memorial. And where there are pigeons, there's pigeon poop. Now you might think, just kill the pigeons, but settle down, killer, it's the 5 whys, not the 2 whys. So the third why are there so many pigeons at the Jefferson Memorial? You might be thinking that it's people leaving food there, but that wasn't it at all. It turns out that pigeons eat spiders, and there's an abundance of spiders at the Jefferson Memorial. And why number 4, why are there so many spiders at the Jefferson Memorial? I know, I'm making you want to go there. There are so many spiders because there's an abundance of gnats at the memorial. Why are there gnats? And here's our root cause. Gnats are most active at dusk. Gnats are most attracted to light. What do you think happens at dusk at the Jefferson Memorial? Massive floodlights. The lights attract the gnats that feed the spiders, that feed the pigeons, that demolish the memorial. Now, a root cause, if removed, will have a clear impact on the problem. So, now what do you think the solution was? They delayed the light timers by 5 minutes and the causal chain disintegrated. No more gnats, spiders, and the pigeons were almost completely gone. Now the maintenance crew was able to reduce the time spent cleaning. They stopped the harsh chemicals and equipment. So feel free to visit again. You're welcome.
Now that we have learned how to generate and organize a lot of ideas, how do we select what to focus on? These lists can be overwhelming, especially when there are many options and factors involved. That's where multivoting or nominal group technique comes in. Multivoting is a simple technique for making decisions for a group of people, and it's great to use in conjunction with a fishbone diagram. Its purpose is to narrow down options from many to just a few. The idea is that each person gets to vote on their top choices. In this case, we are asking the group to identify, of our list of potential causes, which are the most likely, high-impact contributors to the problem that we are trying to solve. We could either have a long, drawn-out debate that leaves everyone exhausted and frustrated, or we could eliminate the verbal cyclone and do a quick multi-vote. The method is simple. Count the total number of options and divide by 4. That's how many votes each person gets. You can decide whether participants can put all their votes in one item. If they feel very passionate about it, that's called Chicago-style voting, or you can require that they place each vote on a different option. Each participant makes their selection privately, for example, making their selections silently at the table. And then when everyone has made their private selections, they go up to the whiteboard, or wherever the fishbone diagram is posted, and marks their selections. You can use sticky dots, a check mark with a marker, whatever. The point is that you'll end up with a visual display of the group's input. Now, just count the items or items with the highest votes, and you have the narrowed down list of potential causes based on the experience of the team.
So let's look at our template for the do part of PDCA. At the top of the slide, we have a table to capture the output from the fishbone activity. You can populate the table with all of the ideas and then highlight those that were voted as the greatest contributors. This table will serve as a record that the team explored many different categories and options, and that, together, they decided on a select few. Those select few go into the bottom table, in the first column titled Main Causes. Keep in mind, your particular problem may have one or many root causes, so be sure to use this form flexibly to support your specific scenario. With these main causes identified, the team can perform a 5 whys on each. When the team has reached the root cause, that is entered in the column on the right. The data in this column will populate the next step on the next part of the form.
With the main root cause identified, the team is now ready to brainstorm solutions for those specific causes. There are actually several steps to creating a solution, but the main steps are to generate ideas and then select the best solution from a specific scenario. In the first step, the team will brainstorm as many ideas as possible to eliminate or minimize the root cause. During the idea generation phase, it is important to not judge or evaluate the ideas, or each other. Idea generation is the time to gather a lot of ideas. In Greenbelt training, we will cover advanced brainstorming techniques, but the point is to be creative. Reviewing the list of potential ideas, see which solutions go well together. We can mix and match multiple solutions to create an overall solutions package. It doesn't have to be just a singular improvement.
When we have our list of potential solution ideas, the next step is to select the best solution. Now, what do we mean by best? In simple terms, the best solution will be the one that has the best balance of 2 main criteria. Typically, those criteria are cost and benefit. We can weigh each potential solution on those 2 factors to see if there's a clear winner. The best option would be if we have a solution that's a high benefit or a high impact, meaning that there's a strong impact on solving our problem, and it's also a low cost. Keep in mind that cost can mean dollars, resources, time, or complexity. A solution that's high cost and low benefit would be the worst choice. There are two other options, and that is a high benefit with a high cost. Maybe that's the best solution if we can afford the costs. Same with the low benefit and low cost. Maybe a small benefit is okay for now, considering resource constraints. This filter matrix can be a very simple and effective way to make a good choice. An important takeaway from this structure is that it encourages the team to expand their thinking and consider multiple alternatives. In many cases, we will go with the first idea that is offered, or just go with a small incremental modification of what's already been tried. The objective is to broaden our ideas of identifying causes and then developing multiple alternatives or solutions. And then we can narrow down based upon the criteria that's meaningful for us.
Let's cover just a few thoughts about what makes a good solution. A good solution has an unmistakable link to the root cause or causes. A good solution is specific, easily understood and implemented. It is developed by the process workers with support from process owners. Some examples of strong solutions are the simplification of steps or removal of unnecessary steps, standardization of procedures. This only works if we are sure that we have an efficient and effective procedure in place to make the standard. Improved layout of the workspace to minimize motion and waste. And automation. Again, this is only a strong solution if the process has been streamlined. It's not effective to automate a bad process. All we get then is the ability to create defects faster.
Examples of moderate solutions are checklists or job aids to ensure consistency and to reduce defects, decreasing the workload or smoothing out the process so that we do not have batches of work waiting to be done while other parts of the process are stalled. Anytime we can decrease interruptions or distractions, it will help our flow. Clarifying documentation, this could be by adding diagrams, pictures, or examples, or whatever it takes to create clarity. And the elimination of lookalikes and soundalikes, which make it very easy to make a mistake. Weak solutions still have some impact, but they're typically not high impact and tend to have a significant downside. Examples of weak solutions would be adding double checks, approvals, or inspections. These steps do not address the root cause, but they can minimize defects getting further on into the process. So they can be effective, but as a short term only until we can address the real root cause. Warnings and reminders, as well as retraining, tend to go ignored. We've actually seen procedures written that give instructions on how to ignore warnings. People very quickly learn to bypass warnings or ignore labels, and they can have a very short-lived effectiveness, if at all.
When the final solution ideas have been selected, the team will solidify the decisions by documenting the solution statement. This is a clear description of the changes that will be made to eliminate or minimize the root cause. It completes the trip of problem, goal, and solution statement that describe this initiative. Take a few moments to review your notes and get ready for a quick quiz on this chapter, the do phase of PDCA. The check phase of PDCA instills the discipline and practice of studying the results of the solution before moving to change the process. This is based on the premise that we don't want to assume that we know what the impact or results will be. We don't want to assume that our changes will not have any unintended consequences. This phase allows us to take the time needed to test our solution and make refinements so that it has the best chance of succeeding.
All improvement will require change, but not all change will result in improvement. This is the checklist to ensure that all of the necessary details are covered to make the most of our pilot. Just to clarify, a pilot is a test to understand the implications of the changes that we're making and to allow us to make refinements based upon what we learn. A pilot is not phase one of the implementation. In fact, we should plan on the fact that we will find something during the pilot that needs refining. If we do the pilot well, we will catch things that we didn't think of, and we'll have the opportunity to avoid big issues when we go live. This is a simple checklist that allows the team to visually see what is done and what's not done. The notes column allows the team to track specific details, which can be very helpful when explaining progress to leadership or stakeholders. When the pilot's completed, the team will make any refinements or changes necessary. When the pilot comes out clean and the expected impact has been confirmed, the team is ready to move to the last phase of PDCA, ACT.
Now the team is ready to confidently move forward with changing the process. They have the confidence that they have identified the root cause of a specific problem, and they have tested a solution and shown that it will work and create a good result. During this phase, the team will also put in place any monitoring that must be done to ensure that the solutions doesn't fade away. The project will be officially closed and the team can move on to the next opportunity.
The checklist for ACT is almost identical to the checklist for the pilot. However, there's an additional section at the bottom to capture the closure information. Little section, big importance. It's critical that we formally close the project with the date and the closing disposition. There are 4 options for the project closure. The process may be improved and the goal was met. Or it was improved a little, but the goal was not met. There may have been no improvement at all. The team may, at any time in the PDCA process, realize that this problem is too big or maybe too complex or out of scope for a PDCA, and it may need to be escalated. So when is escalation appropriate? Some examples of projects that require escalation are: the issue is not resolved after 3 PDCA cycles, or it's a large or complex issue. Maybe it involves multiple departments or outside vendors, or is outside the span of control of the team. If the project requires potential CapEx, like replacing equipment, or if there's a potentially high security, safety, or legal risk, something that should be addressed by leadership. These are all good candidates for escalation. This means that it's a handoff to leadership. It's a formal but simple way to escalate an issue along with the necessary details that describe the problem. Leadership can use this information to prioritize and decide how to respond to the issue. And that's the final page of the PDCA templates.
With regard to escalations, it really depends on your particular scenario. Just as we described at the beginning of this section, your organization may have a process in place to receive, prioritize, and respond to escalations. In this case, you can use your forms to hand the project up the escalation path. If there is no formal escalation path, then you can use the information gathered through the PDCA cycle to share with your management in an informal way. For example, you can come to meetings prepared with your documentation, and you will be more prepared to ask meaningful questions and make relevant recommendations. The important thing is to recognize problems that you can solve and bigger or more complex issues that must be escalated. Now take a few moments to review your notes and get ready for a quick quiz on this chapter. Yes, another one. The check and act phases of PDCA.